Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. And I've got a special guest here, Jeremy Sutton, and he is an expert physical therapist. I've known him for the past couple months now, and he's an absolute beast when it comes to self-publishing, especially for health practice owners, healthcare business owners. He's been working with me and taking some of my concepts from my teachings and being able to put them into micro books for me to be able to promote to my clients and be able to get them other results and sort of bridging that gap. He's published numerous books himself, from business to therapy, and has actually also taken those books and created online programs. So I find that using a book is an absolute crazy way to be able to build your influence, your preeminence. And I'm really excited for him to share with you some of the concepts about how easy it can be and ultimately how it can actually change the course and direction of your business. He's got an excellent story. So thanks so much for joining us today, Jeremy, and really excited for you to share with us what you've got in store.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Brad, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So tell me a little bit about just your background, how you got into where you are now, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, sure. So I've been a physical therapist for 11 years, and my wife and I'd pretty much given up any hope of ever having a business at all. And so met this guy that I kind of knew, and long story short, we bought his physical therapy business for a ton of money. And then even longer story, he was doing some things that weren't great. And so the business wasn't exactly what it was supposed to be. So we had to file bankruptcy. We got sued twice. And that was 2019. So we thought 2020 was going to be a better year, but turns out it's not. But financially, it's been good, but COVID wise. So anyway, during the process of struggling with that business, I had a couple of podcasts I was running. I started writing my own book, and then I kind of became the go-to guy for a lot of my PT and OT friends that were writing books. And so I just started kind of geeking out on it, learning all I could, listening to podcasts, reading articles, studying, looking at Amazon. And so I came up with Healthy Books LLC, which is my company now. And my course is Book Boss University. So I've written 7 books, and I've published 31 books since September of last year with my students. And so I'm just helping really healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, and you name it. I help them write and self-publish books.
Awesome. I think that's super crazy, having 7 of your own books and going down that path. So tell us like a little bit about how you kind of got started on the first book, and sort of how that, why you decided to make one in the first place, and
Sure.
sort of that process that you went through.
Yeah. So my first book originally was called Symptom-Free Neck Pain. And, it's like I said, I've been a PT for 11 years, and I said, I've been telling people over and over and over the same stuff about neck pain. Maybe I should just put it in a book. And, but originally it was an online course, and then I called it, I called it Symptom-Free Neck Pain, and I couldn't sell it. Like I didn't know anything about selling. And so I tried to sell it. I sold it to 2 people. One person was Will Boyd, who helped me set it up on ClickFunnels. Another person was my wife's cousin, and she didn't even pay full price because I didn't know how to set the PayPal link then. So it's kind of crazy. But I said, I don't know how to sell this, but it's still good information. So another friend of mine, Mike Chua, said, you could turn that into a book off your course. And so I did that Friday night. Started, and by Sunday, I had my first book published on Amazon. And got it, started giving it to patients. I ordered, I think, 100 copies and just gave it out to whoever. And everybody was so impressed and so surprised that I'd written a book. And I was like, man, this is really cool. Like they think I'm super smart. And so, I was like, other people should do this. And then eventually we turned that book into Neck Pain Solutions, myself and my co-author, Mark Green, who's also a PT. And we've sold several thousand copies of that, and been helping people write books ever since. But basically just wanted to have information that I could give patients without having to say it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that comes up. And, we talk a lot about this, and I hear from people, it's, if we want to get our business set up, we need to really create good systems and strategies. And one strategy is be able to take what you've got in terms of your knowledge and putting it into either a course or a workshop or a book or something along those lines that we can utilize to help build our authority, our credibility, and ultimately providing more value for our current patients as well as prospective. So tell me like a little bit about, I'm a huge component of using lead magnets and these kind of micro books and stuff like that. So, tell me a little bit about what shifted in your business in terms of your patients, how they saw you, or new patients, and colleagues and so on when you got that book set up.
Yeah. So, obviously it's a huge lead magnet. And so I started giving it to my patients, even the ones that didn't have neck pain. We're all going to have some kind of neck pain or whatever, whether it's a crick in your neck or whatever you want to call it at some point. And so I started just giving it to new patients. And it was such a big deal to people, which to me didn't seem like one at first, but they're like, oh my gosh, you wrote a book. And I've never seen a doctor who has written a book before, or a healthcare professional. And it just became this huge thing that I didn't even expect. And then now I give it out. I give neck pain solutions out to people, and they're like, oh, this is your book. And I'm like, yeah. And it's funny because they see my picture on it and they're like, oh, that's you. And I'm like, yeah, I told you it was my book. And like, people just don't really believe you at first because it's just so uncommon. But I've been able to use that book to make quite a bit of money in the last year, just from, and it really not even the book itself, just from the things that shot off from the book. The other income streams was, an online program for patients, and then for other healthcare professionals and now business owners. But I've had people say, oh, well, I've ordered a copy of your book. I just wanted to let you know it was helpful. And I popped up on Amazon a couple of weeks ago, and somebody had left a review, and that it was helpful. And it's just really cool to see that. And then also to have something that you can hand people that's not, a box of donuts or, whatever it is that people give doctors and other professionals to, want referrals from them. So it's just been a really cool referral source, and, authority builder.
Yeah. And that's a really, key component. I think that's awesome. And it comes with, I get a lot of challenges sometimes in the clients that I work with is saying, hey, if you've got, book, or some of them have written books, or some of them have like blog posts and that type of stuff that they want to put into a book. But, often I'll hear objections with people, and they're sort of say, well, I want to get started. Where do I start? So maybe, give some guidance for those who are sitting on the fence saying, hey, I've got no time to be able to do this, or I don't even know where to start. Like, how do I kind of do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, Brad. And that's one of the things I get a lot of is I don't even know where to start, or, I'm not an author, things like that. Or, another thing people say is, well, I don't like to read. How am I going to write a book? Well, you don't have to, you don't have to like to read, just write your freaking book. So, for the first thing I would say for the people that have content, like you have a ton of content now on social media. I've got 3 podcasts that I've done and multiple live Facebook videos. So I have a ton of content. A lot of people are in that boat. And so basically you can repurpose all that and change it. And one of my virtual assistant right now is working on a book for somebody else, taking about 10 videos that she did and turning it into a book for her. And so it takes a little work, but it's not that big of a deal. You can get it done. It is time consuming to get some of that done. But, one thing that I gave up to get books done was, I gave up watching Netflix all night, every night. And I gave up, scrolling through Facebook all the time and things like that. And so you have this extra time that you don't realize you have, and you just need to stop filling it with other things that suck it from your life. But to just start with an idea, you need to know who you're serving. Is a huge thing. Know your avatar. I would say is the first thing, and the most important is to know who you're talking to. And then the second thing is to know what you're going to write about. And I really like the formula of, where passion, knowledge, and the things that people tell you you're good at intersect. And that's where you start with your book. So, know who you're writing to, know what you're going to write about. And then the next step would be to mind map your book. And then the next step would be to outline your book and then just start writing.
Cool. And, obviously you want to make sure your book is targeted towards one person and one problem that you're solving in that. And in terms of like the mind mapping, like, if someone's got all of these ideas, often I hear it, hey, I've got all of these ideas on how I could help people, but I don't really know where to start. How do you sort of use the mind map process in order for, people to get a little more dialed in and focused?
Well, the one thing I say do, Brad, is if you know who that one person is, and I'm glad you said that, because that's, that's what I teach is we're writing to one person. We're not writing to a million. But, is to ask questions. Especially if you're a healthcare provider or a business owner, you know who your customer is, or you should know. And so let's start asking them questions. What do you need from me? What would you like to see? Does this make sense? Is this something you want? And go from there. But if you decide, let's just say we're going to write on how to do plumbing on your own at home. Well, I'm going to write plumbing down in the middle of the paper, and I'm going to start writing everything I know about plumbing, which is absolutely nothing. But if I was a plumber, I would write down all my things. And then I would just try to figure out what the 5 to 10 most important things are that, one, I've asked my customers and they've told me, and 2, I know from my own experience, and then start putting that into a book, and then just outlining the processes for each one of those things and the most important steps and the tools that you need and the where to get them and things like that. And that's really how any book, whether it's plumbing or pancake making or physical therapy or whatever it is, it's the same process for every book.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing, is really getting dialed in and trying to kind of brain dump before you go into it. Because I know that's one thing for me, is I've got a lot of things going on in my head, and I like to, you can see the whiteboard here. I spend a lot of time on the whiteboard drawing out my ideas or using sticky notes and trying to, put together a little bit more of context before I get into the actual writing of it. And I think one thing that you touched on too is a bit about the research about the book. Because I think a lot of the time people want to write books based on them, but ultimately, we got to realize that what we do and is who we're serving. So we want to make sure that the book is written to best help that person with a specific problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to say, okay, this is what I like. Who cares? Because what I like and need is not what you're going to like and need, Brad. And so we have to make sure that what we're doing meets our customers' needs and their wants. And so, one thing that I've heard so many times is, sell people what they want and give them what they need. So, you may not want a quick fix to neck pain, but you want, or you may not want to get rid of neck pain, but you want to continue playing tennis. Well, then this is the 10 steps to continue playing tennis. And, and then you get this, we're getting rid of neck pain with these exercises. So, you definitely have to be focused on what people want and what they need, and not what you like and think is good.
Yeah. And it goes into what we do as health practitioners in terms of, I always say it's like people are not buying service, they're buying the solution. So you always want to write or always have the solution in mind of what that person really, really wants.
Absolutely.
And, I think this is a big thing that comes up often, is really, what does the structure need to be? A lot of times, I know when I first started to write things, thinking like it's an overwhelming experience, I got to write a tome of 1,000 pages or something like that. But I know that you've done some stuff where you've got shorter books that are informative, but they're, not necessarily a crazy process. So maybe tell us a little bit about the process of, what a book actually needs to look like and how long on average it would really take, and time commitment and whatnot.
Yeah. So if you want to publish on Amazon, which is, I think, the best way, is 70% of books in the world are on Amazon right now. The book has to be 24 pages. And those 24 pages can be 5 by 8, 6 by 9, 8.5 by 11. So there's really a lot of options if you just want to get a book out. And I actually wrote one in one night and published it that night. So it doesn't take forever. How
much coffee did you have there, man?
Dude, so listen, I wrote that book at an open house at my daughter's school in the back, paying attention to what they were saying. I think maybe my wife was listening. I don't remember, but so I did it, and it was based off 24 questions that people gave me, or 24 fears they had of becoming an author. And I just answered all 24 of those fears, and I answered them all in a couple of hours. And then I designed a cover on Canva, uploaded it, and published it. It was super easy. So one night, you could do it. But so a book can be 24 pages on Amazon. If you want to do a Kindle or an ebook version, it can be anywhere from 2 to 2 million pages. It's really whatever you want. And that's, Kindle's version is the ebook on Amazon. So, that's how you do it. to structure it, I would say I used to teach people how to make covers, but it just gets to be such a pain in the butt. And as you and I have found out on a couple of projects, that it's easier to pay somebody. And then even then it doesn't work right. But I usually just hire somebody to build the cover because there's just so many little nuances and things that can screw it up. And once I worked on one for 6 hours one night, I decided it would be better to just pay somebody to do it instead of wasting 6 hours of my life. And so you get a cover, you need a front and back cover, especially for a paperback. And then you start with the book, and the book has a basic structure of a cover, a half title page, which is like neck pain solutions, and then a full title page, which would be neck pain solutions, your guide to getting rid of headaches, arm pain, and neck pain. And then then the author would be there. And then you have a copyright page, a table of contents about the author, a lead magnet is what I always put in my book. And the next book I write will have probably 1 to 5 lead magnets in it, which will be fixing other problems that my book causes. And I'll get back to that in just a second. These are good problems. But, table of contents, about the author page, a lead magnet, and then gets into the body of your book and then finishes with any other services you want to promote. I will caution you, don't make your book like an infomercial and just be selling something else, because that's one of the biggest things I find on Amazon with reviews. And I do read a lot of Amazon reviews, 1 to 3 star reviews, to learn what not to do. And then I'll go back and read 4 and 5 star reviews to learn what people liked, especially about books that I'm thinking about writing something similar. I used to feel like I was kind of copying or cheating, but now I'm just looking for how someone else messed up and how we can improve upon it. Because there's really no new information in this world. We're just regurgitating things over and over, and just in our unique way. So I would do that. And then I want to talk about kind of the lead magnet. So I always tell my clients to let's solve the problems that your book is going to cause. So if your book's based on getting rid of back pain so someone can go back to mountain biking, then hopefully you're going to solve that. The transformation you're going to give people is they go back to mountain biking, but it's also going to cause some other problems. So maybe they've gained 10 to 20 pounds because they haven't been able to mountain bike for 6 months. So maybe you design a lead magnet that says, hey, here's a quick 30-day HIIT training to get back to mountain biking in a month, or here's a 30-day diet plan, or whatever you're legally, ethically able to do. Well, maybe another part of that is, they haven't been able to mountain bike in a while, so now they don't have the right equipment. So then you could have how to fit for a new mountain bike, and maybe an affiliate link to somebody else, or a referral to someone's business that's in your neighborhood or whatever. And then so it just goes on and on. Whatever problems you feel like your book's going to cause, you solve those problems with the other lead magnets. And that's something that I've learned from listening to Hal Elrod, who did the Miracle Morning, and he talks about a lot on how he has done his books. So but that's kind of the basic structure of it. And I really geek out on books now, Brad. Like anytime I get a new book, I look at the structure, how it's written, what font they use, and things like that, because I'm always looking to improve the way my next book will look.
For sure. And maybe go over some things that I know you touched on a little bit about, hey, not just running it like an infomercial, but some key things that people are saying, as negatives, or things that they tend to not enjoy as much.
I would say the negatives would be, like somebody. So we both know a ton of people that have courses and books and things like that, and they have all these products. And I will say Paul Goff, for example, who's a physical therapist from England. He now lives in Florida half the year, but he's a phenomenal marketer. Has several books that he's written, and his latest book had, I think, 10 lead magnets in it. And this is not negative. I think he did a fantastic job because he has all these other products. And so he lets you know about them. So it wasn't negative in the fact that he did have 10 lead magnets, but they were 10 very well done and well thought out and not offensive. Whereas other books that I've read, and then the reviews I've read, is like, well, this book was 70 pages and 50 pages of it was double spaced and promoting the author's online coaching program that's $5,000 a month or a year, whatever, which is fine if you're getting worth that value and want to do the course. But if someone bought a book on, let's say, how to be, I'm not going to say that, how to be a good gardener, then all you do is talk about this new gardening tool that you have, well, then it's going to kind of piss them off because they didn't learn anything from the book. So it's people kind of feel like, Brad, there's a little bait and switch action happening with these books where you promise them a transformation and then you sell them your program, which maybe gives it, but that's not what they wanted. So I would say that's the number one thing is when you are writing a book, probably if it's nonfiction and you're a business owner, then you do have something else to offer, but just make sure you're not doing it in a sleazy manner to where that's all your book is. So that would be the number one thing. The second thing I would say is kind of goes with number one is if you tell people that this book solves back pain, then you better have some solutions to back pain, and not just be buy this knee brace or whatever it is. So definitely, make sure you have the solution. The next thing I would say is if you title a book, make sure it's appropriately titled because, again, if you say it does one thing and then there's nothing in the book about it and you just thought that title sounded great, if you have the miracle minute to stop mobility problems, I don't know, and there's nothing in there about a minute or mobility or whatever, and it's you telling a story about how you had back pain, well, that's going to make people angry and they're going to give you crappy reviews. So I would say that's one thing. And then, just not overreaching. I try to never talk about things that I don't know about, and I especially don't teach about things I don't know about. And then I give credit if I teach something, like a lot of times I'll talk about Chandler Bolt or Dave Chesson, who do different things with self-publishing, because they have some really amazing tools. And I don't want people and I think people do this, Brad, maybe with thinking about it or without, but I don't want to say something that you taught me and then take credit for it. I want to be like, hey, Brad told me this, I'm just showing it to you. So I think I see that a lot in a lot of books. They're just regurgitating something else that someone else wrote about. But the biggest complaint I see with books, and I want to just kind of warn people about and say not to worry about it, is a lot of times I'll see people say this with books and courses. Well, all this was already online for free. I don't know why I needed to buy your book. Well, guess what? Everything's online for free. But when you package something in a course or a book or whatever it is, a service, well, then you didn't have to go spend the time cultivating all this and putting it together. So I think that's a crappy excuse, but I do see that one a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing is you spend $20 or $30 on book, and it's like a lot of the time you've got to consume it and take action on it. And obviously, they're distilling down the information that will probably save you a lot of time as well. So I think those are cool points for sure. So, maybe share with us kind of the process on how you structure your time and sort of how you can execute. Because I know a lot of the things that you talk about is being able to have your book done and planned and set up and done and actually in your hands as a copy in 90 days. Mm-hmm. So, maybe walk through that process about what that could look like and tools people use and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a lofty goal, and it's happened. We've had people get it done in 90 days, and then we've had people get it done in 5 to 6 months. So, but yeah, it can definitely be done in 90. And so usually, like I said, you want to make sure you know who you're writing to, what you're writing about, get your book outline. I've seen that the biggest holdback or stoppage to the book getting done is the outline, because we use the outline as the roadmap. And if you don't know where you're going with your book, you're not going to get there. So once we outline it, we get a really good outline down. And that's what I've been doing with all my clients, is making sure we get on the phone within 1 to 2 weeks, get the outline down. We may get on another call or another, and just make sure we hammer that out good. And then it goes faster because, so we get the outline done. And then I always ask Brad is, how long do you want this book to be? Because, if you want it to be 300 pages, we need to write a lot more per day than we do if it's going to be 50 pages or 150. So I say, okay, how long do you want the book to be? And so my last client said about 140 pages. I was like, okay, perfect.
How do you determine that exactly?
So I think really, Brad, people just have in their mind that my book needs to be 140, 150 pages. And it's just some whatever belief that we have. But the average book is about 40,000 words. And that's about 140 to 150 pages. And so we kind of start there, and I kind of do the same thing, Brad. I'm like, well, what, realistically, what are you thinking? And like, well, I saw this book and it was this. So, but if they throw out that random number and then we talk about it and I say, okay, well, why do you want to do that? What are you thinking? How many? Well, I want to write 3 chapters. Well, that's not going to be 150 pages. So once we really get set on, okay, here's our outline. We've outlined 12 chapters. Okay, there's 6 that are really meaty, 3 that are not probably going to take 4 pages a piece, and then 2 or 3 more that are pretty good. We can probably hit that. And so about 280 to 300, 320 words per page on a 6x9 book with the margins, how we set them. And so then we get a number, say 40,000. And I say, when do you want to have your book done? My last client was like, hey, I want to have my book done by the end of this year. I was like, okay. So we got September, October, November, December. We got 4 months. That's 120 days. Divide it. Simple math. That's how you write your book. So that's how I do it. It's really simple on that. And then they just start writing, and then usually we'll have a call about midway through, or sometimes maybe earlier, and say, okay, you need to have the first chapter done this week, second chapter this week, third, and then just kind of set out a schedule. And I didn't do that early on, and I can definitely tell like I should have, but I've been doing that more with recent clients, and it's been making a big difference. Yeah, man. So that's how I do it. And then I have them send me. Some people don't want to do this for whatever reason, but a lot of times I'll say, hey, can you send me your chapters as you get them done? That way we can make sure we're staying on the right path. And that way I'll kind of do like a little pre-editing on them as well. And it's hard if I had, I'm a 2-man show. I'm a 1-man and a 1-woman show right now. But if I had 75 clients and I was reading all these books, but we can manage it right now. And it's not been too bad. I read 2 chapters last week for 2 clients. And so that's kind of how we do it.
For sure. And, if you're starting out and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, do I just sit down and just start typing stuff, or, do I handwrite it? Like, what do you find generally is best practice?
Whatever you want to do. So, for the longest time I was promoting Otter, and I've kind of stopped that. And you actually gave me a better tool we started using that. It's much better. But, I teach people to dictate their books, and then they can do the transcribing, and then definitely editing. And it takes a while. I mean, I did some, and it took me a couple hours to do like 3 paragraphs. So it definitely takes a little while on that end. But if you have, I'm not the best at editing the transcribing, and I don't mind saying that. But it's best if you have the context behind what's going on and all that. But so I usually say people can dictate, and we speak 250 words per minute, so you can do a lot really fast. But I personally think a lot better when I'm typing or handwriting. So I just say you have to find out what's best for you. I've had several people say, I love dictating my book. I never thought about that. And then I've also had probably the same amount, if not more, say, I absolutely hate dictating my book, and I'm going to type it, and it's going to take me a little longer. So, but either way, it's definitely manageable. So you just have to figure out what's best for you and then go with it.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, it's like, I find, just speaking is a lot easier, and Descript I thought was cool as a podcasting based tool, but it takes both video and your text and puts it into an easy to use format, so you're able to kind of do it. But I totally can agree. I hate the copy editing, and I guess that's even another question too, is like, in terms of, you've got all this stuff here, like, what is the next step? Like, you talk a little bit about copy editing versus actually proofreading and that kind of stuff. So the person's got it, let's say 3 months down the road, they've stick to the plan, they got their book. What's the next step?
Yeah. So 3 months down the road, book's done. Absolutely want to find someone to edit your book. And I do have 2 people on my team that help with that. But it's whoever you want to find, whoever you feel comfortable with. Some people want to pay $50 to edit their book, which is you get $50 worth of editing. Some people want to pay a little bit more. I think a reasonable price is between $100 or $200 and $500. But anyway, you want to get it edited, and then you also want somebody looking at it that has a marketing mindset. I believe, and that would be me or somebody on my team or whoever that that's coaching you or whatever. But making sure that if you're writing a book for business reasons, you're doing it to increase your revenue and serve your clients better. So it needs to be able to do that. And so it's really a two attempt job, the content editing and the grammar, and then the copy editing. And so, you just have to get somebody that can do that. And there's plenty of people you can hire on Fiverr or Upwork. My team and I can do it. But it is time consuming, especially the copy editing. And, if you're going to go from videos to a book, you want to add in probably maybe another month or longer sometimes, depending on how much you're willing to do on it. Because it is a lengthy process when you have to go and take somebody else's book and edit it like that, to turn it from a video into a book, especially if you don't know them very well. Like, excuse me, I did it for Greg Todd. He's a physical therapist in Tampa. I took about 12 of his videos and turned them into a book. And it was very easy for me to do that because I know him very well. I was one of his students for a year, well, really longer than that. And I've had 50 phone conversations with him, been at mastermind events with him, stayed in a house with him for the weekend. And so I knew his voice and I knew what his overall message was. So that was super easy. But then I've tried to do it for other people that I didn't know quite as well. And it can be difficult. So
totally get it. Yeah. And I think that's another important thing for people to kind of know too, even going back to like how this kind of started, is like, hey, if you got blog posts, you can consolidate them. If you've got videos or you're doing workshops. So, I'm a big proponent for utilizing workshops itself and selling one to many, but taking a back pain workshop or neck shoulder pain workshop, whatever you're doing, and then taking that copy and getting it transcribed with something like Rev or Temi, one of those services,
right,
and having someone kind of put it together, and you might have a book or something you can use as a lead magnet in those regards. So I think that there's lots to kind of think from that standpoint about not just sitting down and having to write, but you can dictate it. You might have a video already, blog posts, and so on.
Yeah, and I would say it's definitely easier if you're going to have someone do, edit your blogs or whatever for you. It's so much easier to go from a video to a book, because I can hear Brad if I watch 10 of your videos. Well, maybe I have to sit down for 10 hours, and if they're all an hour long, and watch them, but I could do it on 2 or 5x speed or whatever. But I get who you are. I hear your voice. I hear your your passion or your lack thereof or whatever it is. And I hear your message, and then I can translate that to the book better, versus if I just read the transcription. So what I'm saying is, like, if you're doing this if you own a business and you want to get somebody to turn this into a book for you, make sure you send them the videos and the transcription, because it just makes it that much easier. Because if I'm just reading something that you put down, well, I have no idea what your tone was, your tense, and your passion level. So I think it's very helpful to do that as well.
Cool, for sure. So now let's say we've got that book done, we've got it copy edited, it's ready to go, it's in your hands. Maybe walk us through the next steps of opportunities that you've experienced and your clients have experienced from having a book, and some of the new doors that may have been open or other opportunities, and
sure,
kind of what to expect. Because I think the big misconception sometimes too is, and correct me if I'm wrong, like people are like, hey, I'm going to make $1 million off selling my book. And the reality is it's there to build your preeminence and build credibility and value and relationship. You're probably not going to make a lot of money from the book, but there may be other opportunities, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I talked to somebody this morning, and hang on just a second. All right. So I talked to somebody this morning, and they were like, well, look, I sold, 5 or 10 copies of my book a month, and definitely think we can sell more than that. And we talked about it. But I said, look, if you're talking to me to get rich with a book, you're talking to the wrong person. And I tell everybody that. I probably told you that, Brad. Because it's not the book a lot of times that makes the money. It's the things on the back end, the online courses, the coaching programs, the, opportunities to get on podcasts and radio possibly, and TV shows and things like that. And that's my next thing, is trying to get on news stations and promote my book on that. And it's just something that, we talked about, there's a lot going on, and it just hasn't been a big deal for me lately, but I want to do it just so I can teach other people how to do it. But once you get your book, it's copy edited and done. It's just there's so many things. So what I would say is, you're going to publish your book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever. I would do Amazon. And then you order the copies of your book. So I want you to have physical copies in your hand, and you give those to people. You send them to, I don't say competing businesses. I say complementary businesses, because I don't think there's a lot of competition, because nobody is you. Okay. So you're unique. But so I want to give those businesses to other PTs, other, chiropractors, massage therapists, whatever's in town. Give my book out. And then I want to start, growing my business on that. So I want to start reaching out to podcast hosts and say, hey, I just wrote this book on how to grow an audience, 0 to 10,000 people in a year, or whatever it is. I'd love to come on your podcast and teach your audience about it. Oh yeah, let's book you. So it's made it easier to get on podcasts, which is really not a big issue if you just start reaching out to people anyway. But it gives you something to present and to promote and to give their audience. You're adding value. So I would say let's do that. And then once you have that book, I actually just shot a video a couple of weeks ago, and I'm running a Facebook ad right now with it. And it teaches you how to convert your book to an online course. It takes you through like a 6-step framework to set it up into an online course or an online coaching program or whatever, because, that's really where you're going to make the money with your book. As I was telling somebody yesterday, the number that I've been able to make with my book since last September. And it's like it's been a part-time job basically, as far as the income or, that's come in from it. And it's really not been a whole lot of effort. I mean, it's definitely coaching people. It takes time from you, but in the grand scheme of things, like the amount of money I was able to make, I made it a lot faster and a lot easier than if I was to go out and get a second job or something like that, or whatever that sometimes that we have to do. But yeah, it's always the back end stuff, the coaching programs, the interviews. I've been able to speak at a PT conference in Tampa that 500 people were at. And, I didn't speak to all of them, but I've been able to be on virtual summits and all kinds of things with my book.
Love it. Yeah. So I think that's a huge thing, is really utilizing the book. You're not writing the book to get rich, but you're writing the book to be able to do, presentations and get other opportunities. And I've even found myself, it's like when you show up a lot differently if you're going to, set up a joint venture or potential, partnership with another health practitioner or business owner. And instead of just showing up with business cards, you're able to show up and say, hey, here's, a bunch of books, or here's a book that I wrote based on this topic, and I'd really love to chat. It puts you in that position where people see you in a different light. And ultimately, it's not, it's a lot of work, obviously, but it's not as hard or as challenging as we might think it is. No. And the amount of upside we get from having them is exponential.
It's huge. I want to tell you a story just exactly to that point. A friend of mine, Carrie Malone, she's a mobile physical therapist in Minnesota. And she would stop in this nursing home or assisted living or whatever every few months and talk to leave her card with a director or whatever. And so she went to see this director after she wrote her book about strokes. And she's like, oh yeah, leave your card. We'll get back to you, whatever. She's like, oh, I actually brought you a present today. It's my newest book. She's like, oh, what? And so the director's like, come sit at my desk. And so they end up having a 30-minute conversation. That book gets handed to someone who had a stroke a year ago, who had some therapy, really wasn't pleased with it, ends up paying for a $1,000 cash PT package, and has gone on to spend at least $5,000 with her in the last few months. So just off of a book that cost you $2.33 to publish or print, you've made $5,000 off of it. And that's just off of one person. So, and when she released her book, it was, she lived in China for a little while, and she had this Chinese church. It was about stroke. They bought 550 copies on the first day. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. And so with that 550 copies, I think they were like 99 cents a piece because it was the Kindle version, but that's 550 people that have her book that can potentially use her service. So it's huge. It's absolutely, I think it's one of the best. Dan Kennedy wrote a book, and it's called Book Business. He wrote it with somebody else, I can't remember. And he says, all of your perfect clients are behind a locked door, and the key to open it is your book. I believe it 100%.
I mean, he wrote like 30 books, so
Yeah, exactly.
definitely worked
Exactly.
for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So, when you've kind of got all this stuff, and then we know that we've got a lot of opportunities, and we've just kind of carve out the time. Is there any specific tips or other kind of hidden strategies and secrets that you found throughout the process of authoring 7 different volumes, and that you can kind of share to help people get some hacks?
Yeah, you don't have to do it all from scratch. I think that's the biggest thing. Is I now have several templates. Amazon actually has templates that I've saved and tweaked a little bit. One of the things that a couple of my books are journals, and the biggest thing was trying to get lines on the page that didn't look like crap, and you're not having to hit shift and space for 45 minutes. And so basically, you just take your page and you put a table on it, and then you take the lines on the side out, and then you have your journal where you can write on it. And so I think that's been a huge thing. It's just figuring out what works and then making templates from it. And I have those on healthybooks.net /templates if you want to go find that, or /template. I can't remember right off the top of my head. There's like 6 or 8 of those, but that's one thing. The second thing is you don't have to write for 3 hours a day. You don't have to have a writing shed. You don't need complete silence. You don't have to be a writer or whatever. Writers and authors are dads, moms, sisters, brothers, therapists, doctors, lawyers, plumbers, whatever. Just carve out a few minutes a day. If you got 10 minutes a day to write. If you've got 30 minutes a day, write. If you want to do it every other day, that's fine. Just know and have an end goal, and then start working towards that goal. And if you want to write a 50-page book, and you want to have it done in the next 3 to 6 months, then it's really not hard. Write 400 words every other day, and you'll get it done. It's not hard at all. And so my biggest thing would be to just get started and tell somebody else you're doing it so they can hold you accountable. Because if you just think it in here and you say, I'm going to do it, then it's not going to get done ever. That's it.
And obviously, if they need accountability, then they need to hire someone like you to be able to kind of help fill that gap too.
Yeah, I mean, if you need accountability, you need to hire the book boss. Me, no, that I've named myself. By the way, nobody else named me that.
It's the book boss, so that's good. Is there anything else that you feel would be really important to share with someone who's sitting on the fence, or maybe started the book and they really just need to kind of get up and running?
Yeah, I would say that looking at it. People say, well, this is going to take me a lot of time, and there's just other things I can do. And yes, I agree. And maybe a book is not the most important thing for you or your business right now. And if that's the case, then definitely don't waste your time on it. But maybe it is. Spend the time to write the book. And then once you get the book written, that's really when the work starts. You can't just put it out into the world and say, okay, 1,000 people are going to buy my book every day, because that only works for Dan Kennedy and Russell Brunson and Pat Flynn and Stephen King and whoever else that are amazing authors. But for the rest of us, we have to put people in front of it. We have to put traffic in front of our book, whether that's with paid ads or getting on podcasts or television or just blasting all over everywhere about it and putting it in people's hands. And so, pat yourself on the back that you became an author, because not very many people accomplish that goal. But then after that, say, okay, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and I'm really going to promote this book and get it in people's hands, because that's ultimately how I'm going to make more money from it. I'm going to serve more clients, I'm going to grow my business, and I'm going to change the world. And so I would just say, get started and then put as many people in front of it as you can.
I think it's great advice. And then just keep growing from there. So, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing, these tips and sharing a lot of the progress and, successes that you've had and some of those kind of tweaks and whatnot, because ultimately, I've went down this process before. I'm kind of in the process of taking some of my content and putting it into books. But in terms of like the therapy and training stuff from my kind of business and previous life, so to speak, in this a practitioner, I spent a lot of time putting together things that were able to be used in different lights. Some were longer than others and whatnot, but ultimately it was something that allowed me to create a lot of leverage and just be seen differently. So something that doesn't take much time. If you've already got blog content, you've already got live videos or YouTube videos or whatever it is, it's super simple to take those things and start to get it into something that you can use to create that preeminence and build more value with the clients that you have. So tell us like a little bit about how people can, find you and what you can help people with, and ultimately getting them using the Book Boss service if they need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ray. Well, first off, you can just call me 318-278-0330. It's my cell phone number.
We'll add that in the chat at the bottom.
Yeah, that's fine too. And then the second thing is healthybooks.net is my website, and you can go and schedule a call with me, and we do 30-minute calls or 45-minute calls, whatever you need to do for free. And then Book Boss Tribe on Facebook is my group if you want to get in there. So look for me on Facebook, Jeremy Sutton. I'm on LinkedIn, Jeremy Sutton. So if you can't get in touch with me, you're not looking. So I'm pretty easy to get to.
Awesome. And so what we'll do is I'll take some of the links that you have, you send them to me over, and we'll just post them below here so people can reach out. So,
Perfect.
I want to say thanks for coming on, taking some time out of your day, being able to help people. Ultimately, I know you've got a massive passion for helping people write their books and take what their expertise is and ultimately getting it out there for them to grow their business, to gain that credibility, and ultimately helping people, find solutions for the problems that they have. So thanks again for coming on. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on, and I always enjoy talking to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, later.